Welcome to the Rare Fitness Podcast. We help busy adults stay strong, healthy, and confident for life. So most people don't fail because they're lazy. Most people fail because they don't have a plan and they don't have accountability. And on today's episode, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about with Dr. Christopher Lloyd.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris.
Good.
Now look, Chris is Welsh, so if you have a hard time understanding him,
Yeah, you'll have to deal.
yeah, you have to deal with proper English. Anyway, so Chris, tell us a little about yourself, who you are, where you live, what's going on.
So, I said I'm a doctor, GP based in Stoke-on-Trent in England, and I'm brother-in-law to this one. And yes, it got to a stage really, I'm 39, nearly 40.
Oh my God.
And I know we're a little bit young compared to you.
That's
but,
right.
I've got to a stage where I was just a little bit fed up. Working a busy job, 2 busy children, wife GP as well, and it got to a stage where and something needed to give.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of got in touch and asked for a bit of support and some help.
So I think you're playing with something here though, playing with fire. Who did you ask to help you though?
My sister-in-law, of course.
Are you crazy?
Yeah, she came over for Christmas, and we had started chatting about it and what my goals were going to be for the coming year, as you do at New Year's Eve. And I wanted to make sure that I actually got rid of the beer belly by the time I was 40.
Yeah.
So I gave myself 4 months to do it, and it was a bit of a challenge from that part. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I swung in and out of diets, exercise, and bits and pieces, but a lot of it was stuff that I'd attempted to do myself. And I think I just needed that sort of guidance to kind of push me in the right direction.
So were you also tired, like feeling tired as well?
Absolutely. The job itself is mentally demanding. I've been doing house renovations. Like I said, I have an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old. And between all of that, I just didn't have a great deal of time for myself. And as a result, when you're looking after other people, when you're doing other jobs, when you're busy with your own schedule, you kind of lose time for the rest of it. You come home so exhausted that you just end up losing a few hours by the time the kids are in bed, and then you're in bed yourself and back up the following day, and before you know it, you've sat on the couch for a couple of hours and just going to bed and waking up as lethargic as you went to bed. So it's one of those things where you got stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
I just needed to break that cycle.
Awesome. So not only married, 2 kids, you're a GP, your wife's a GP, but you also you try to visit your mother, who's a few hours away in Wales.
Absolutely, yeah.
And your sister and brother-in-law, but then also you have our mother and father-in-law as well, who are right around the corner.
Yeah, they are. And, they are helpful with the kids where they can be. And, my mum comes up to help. But, when most of my family is a good 2.5, 3.5 hours away, it's difficult to fit everything in.
Yeah.
When you end up prioritizing other things. And as good as that is, or as well as you try and do your best, it gets to a stage where sometimes you need to look after yourself a bit more, so you can be there for your family.
Yeah. So anybody out there listening, does that sound like you? Right? I think we can all relate with Chris here. I'm sure it does. So Chris, for you though, you wanted to lose some of the weight by the time you were 40.
Yeah.
Was there more of a driving force behind that though? Was there something like, were you tired after going up the stairs at night? Were you tired of what you saw in the mirror? What was it? Was there a bigger driver underneath all that?
Yeah, I think there was a couple of things really that really sort of started pushing me in the other direction. Obviously, my boys are 3 years apart. They do a lot of fighting and a lot of roughhousing and what have you. And they're very active kids. And I found I got to my point where, we're running outside, we're playing around, and they wanted me to do another half an hour running around playing football. And I'm on my haunches thinking, this isn't right. And it's just one of those things where you don't notice, and then it kind of creeps up on you, and all of a sudden, you put a couple of extra pounds on, you're that little bit extra tired, you're that little bit more lethargic, and it was affecting my head as well. I think just the lethargy, and I just wanted a bit of a boost.
Yeah.
And I needed that sort of like I said, that shove, that push in the right direction, but with a little bit of support as well, to a bit more of a guidance, and really just getting a plan in place. Because the one thing I noticed, obviously, with all the help that Lee's given me, is that actually a lot of the things that have been in place, the exercises, the regimes, the diet changes, actually all of those are pretty readily available to me. It's just a case of being to apply them in an appropriate manner.
Yeah.
Monitor what you're doing, be accountable for what you're eating, the exercise that you're doing. But the other thing is the manner in which Lee approached it, and the fact that if I did miss a day, or I didn't quite do the right weight, or did have to change an exercise, it was well done for doing what you're doing, not why didn't you do that.
Yeah.
So it was an encouragement to the fact that you were able to adjust things to suit, utilize what you have available, what you have around you, and it's made a massive difference.
Cool.
And a difference, a lot of these diets, a lot of these things that you end up doing a brief time, or they're not sustainable, or they're good for a short period of time, and then the longevity isn't there. And I knew I had to just absolutely stick to it and be accountable for what I was doing. And then I went up our mother-in-law's, and I was helping my father-in-law. We were doing a few jobs, and all of a sudden I smell, I'm sure that's bacon and eggs. And she cooked me an absolutely outstanding bacon and egg sandwich.
Yeah.
And proper bacon as well. And the smell was amazing. And I was 3 days into the diet. I'm thinking, no, I've got to go. So I finished what I was doing. I went down to Carol. I said, thank you very much. And I left. You
left, yeah.
I had to leave.
So hold on, pause a minute. So 3 days into the diet, 3 days into the program.
Yeah.
Okay. So 3 days in, how had you lost any weight yet?
I'd lost 4 pounds in 3 days.
Okay, 4 pounds in 3 days. Okay. So, but also with the program, not just, so we don't say diet, that's fine, but we'd like nutrition, right?
Fair enough.
Because Lee never told you couldn't eat anything, did she?
Oh, absolutely not.
Like not having the bacon and egg sandwich, that was your choice.
That was my choice.
Because you knew it would just lead down a rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So 3 days in though, you're up helping our in-laws.
Yep.
And you've been doing good.
Yeah.
And I think interesting thing about that, it wasn't really your willpower, knowing what happened in that moment. Did you feel you'd let yourself down, let Lee down? What was it? Because most people are like, it's just one meal. It's just one piece of bacon.
It was, I had set my stall out that I was going to give this everything I got.
You set your what?
Set the stall out. So
what does that mean? Your goals?
Yeah, I'd set my goal. I'd kind of made an agreement with myself.
Okay.
That if I was going to do this, I was going to do it properly, and I was going to do it wholeheartedly, 100%.
Okay. For how long? Was there a set amount of time?
Well,
or like an amount of weight? What was it?
No. So initially, it was going to be for 6 weeks, and my aim was to lose a stone.
What's a stone?
Oh, I don't know how much that is in
14 pounds.
14 pounds.
14 pounds, yeah.
So I wanted to lose 14 pounds.
Okay.
That was going to bring me down from sort of 180 area around to sort of,
okay.
160.
So goal was 6 weeks, 14 pounds.
Yeah, that was the plan.
3 days in, you're 4 pounds down.
Yeah.
Cool. At the in-laws' house.
Yeah.
I mean, you did want to speak to your mother-in-law again, right?
Yeah.
Turn it out for
Absolutely, yeah. It's got to be the first time I've ever turned down a bacon and egg sandwich in my entire life. But
you don't only turn it down, you actually left.
I did. I had to leave. Yeah, I left.
Yeah. That's accountability right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say, so that's probably that is the first time you've ever done that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand too, the bacon sandwiches are really good.
Yeah.
The bacon in England is way different. It's like ham.
Yeah.
It's way different.
It's very good.
Okay, so all of that. So let's back up though. You wanted to lose some weight by the time you were 40.
Yes.
Running around with the kids, didn't have as much energy. You're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Can any of you relate? Same position, right? I'm sure you can. And then did you call Lee, or did Lee reach out to you? Like where?
So it was, Lee was visiting, wasn't she, over Christmas?
Yeah.
So, we just started talking about it, and then she showed me the app.
Okay.
The Platinum Body app.
So the app where we put the workouts, the programming, and we can actually message you in the app to help keep it accountable.
Absolutely.
And do whatever. We put videos, memes. Okay. Yeah. Did you think she thought you were serious?
No.
Because I wasn't sure.
I thought it was one of those things that, it was a passing comment saying, yeah, okay, I'll do it.
Okay.
And I don't think either of us realized quite what we were getting ourselves in for. But, it is that it is that, it goes back to that encouragement.
Mm.
You know, a lot of the things that I've had to do in the nature of our job, you know, can be quite isolating in a smallish GP practice,
Mm-hmm.
where you don't get that exposure to lots of other people. That, you know, it's not like you can say, do you want to go to the gym after this, or want to go for a run? You know, they are encouraging, they're trying to get us up and moving in sort of lunch hours and things. But, you know, when I'm there 11, 12 hours and then coming back, it's, you know, you haven't got that, come on, let's go.
The
And I
oomph.
needed that encouragement.
Okay.
And I said, if there was a day that, you know, I wasn't feeling good, or there was a day that it wasn't going to work for me, you know, I'll make up for it the following day.
Okay.
And yeah, so she just looked me through the app and told me what I could and couldn't do, look at the nutritional plan.
Yep.
You know, it wasn't a case of, right, you're allowed to eat this and you're not allowed to eat that. Actually, if anything, I started eating more.
More.
Yeah, particularly for breakfast and lunch.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm absolutely sure.
Okay. So you had the app.
Yep.
Lee put the workouts in there for you.
Yes, I did.
Did you have some elaborate setup at home of workout equipment?
I certainly didn't. No, I had 2 kettlebells, 2 dumbbells, and an ab mat.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what were the weights of the kettlebells and the dumbbells?
So I had a 10-pound and a 16-pound dumbbell.
Okay.
And then I had a 16-pound kettlebell, and then I had some adjustable barbell.
Dumbbells.
Dumbbells.
Dumbbells,
Just
yeah.
adjustable dumbbells that went up to 12 kilograms. So that's
So 12 kilograms, about 25 pounds.
About 25
okay. Wow.
pounds, yeah.
So that's not that much.
it isn't that much. No,
Okay. All right. So that the workouts, nutrition wise, she had you eating more.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. What else did she talk about? Sleep, hydration. What else?
Yeah,
Like
so-
time for you.
So she set me up with a watch so I could start monitoring my sleep.
Okay.
I can start monitoring my steps, and actually my calorie input and output. It just gave me an idea of what my intake was like versus my output. And not that that's the be all and end all of the plan, but it just gave me an insight to how much I was expending versus
Right.
how much I was taking on board. So I found that a really useful sort of guide to where I was up to. And the fact that Lee could track and see all of those things was again a really helpful thing for me, because if I was going maybe, you know, having too much carbs versus too many proteins and too many fats or whatever, you know, even if it was subtle, sometimes it was actually you're not eating enough of something and you
Right.
needed to give that a bit more of a go. I think that was the you know, the really useful bit. I mean, I think the biggest thing was just being aware of portion size more than anything.
Okay.
You know, and something as daft as, you know, having rice with a curry.
Okay.
You know, I'd plate up the rice, not thinking too much about it, and then when I'm looking, actually, maybe you should drop it down to, you know, a cup or a half a cup. And actually, I'm looking at it thinking that's not enough. But when you're boosting your curry with a bit more protein, with
Yeah.
some more vegetables, actually it becomes a more nutritionally complete meal. And actually, you know, it's helping you body and mind and helping with the workouts.
Yeah. Awesome.
Because I mean, when I started, goodness me, I was tanked after about 25 squats. And you know, by the end of the 6 weeks, I was doing sets of 100.
Sets of 100.
Yeah.
And even you were doing some of those if you got to right before you went to bed.
Yeah.
You had so much more energy, like, no, I have to get this done.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of the time, the kids are in bed. I've been in work, and then thought, right, it's time for my workout. So I'm doing
And what time was that about?
about 10:30, 11 o'clock.
10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
10:30, 11 o'clock. Have any of y'all watching been doing a workout at home at 10:30, 11
Yeah.
o'clock?
Well, that was the time where I would just be sat watching a bit of telly or doing work on my laptop or something along those lines. And, you know, it didn't take that much effort.
Yeah. And it wasn't like an hour, was it?
No, you know, some of these exercises were maybe 15, 20 minutes long. And if you do them right and, you know, Lee's giving me all of the information that I need to do them correctly, you know, you're absolutely exhausted after that.
Yeah.
But I actually found it helped me get off to sleep better. I mean, I know some people get sort of, but actually it kind of got rid of some of the overall stress of the day, shall we say.
Absolutely. Stress,
Yeah.
anxiety. Yeah.
Exactly, and it definitely helped. I think it cleared my mind. Whereas normally I would be looking to, aimlessly scroll or watch something banal on TV that kind of just takes me away from,
Yeah.
everyday
Because that's what we do at the
stress.
end of the day, right? Just sit there with the
Absolutely.
TV and just chill out.
Exactly.
Or
But
work.
I thought, this is 3-4 times a week. If I can't afford myself the 20 minutes there, I can. What am I going to do?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that change and the consistent change, I think, was key as well. It's no point hammering it for several days and then stopping. The fact
Yeah.
that you can break it up, catch up a day if you've got something else planned. And it made a big difference. I mean, if we even come over here, I'm on holiday, you usually let yourself go. First thing I did was go to the shop and get some oats and some matcha and some yogurt so I could do my overnight oats.
And you did it every day.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's made a big difference. I think the other thing is assuming that if you don't eat much, it's essentially a diet or you can lose weight with that. But if you eat the wrong things, it's pointless.
Yeah.
I think, oh, I've only had 2 crumpets for breakfast. I've only had a sandwich for lunch.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you've had like 4 or 5 slices of bread in the day, a little bit of meat. You've had no protein. I've had no vegetables. I'm not one monitoring how much I'm drinking, which I'm doing now as well with regards to water and things like that. So I'm hydrating better. And I've noticed with the app as well that my sleep has improved. So the quality of my sleep. I could still probably could do with having a couple of extra hours. But,
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you have deeper sleep now.
better sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you, before you started with Lee doing this though, were you tracking any of these things or you
No.
just kind of winging it?
Just
Okay.
really-
Has tracking it been like hugely a problem or like so difficult?
No, it's been really easy, and I thought that was going to be the one thing I was gonna struggle with, and that's a little bit about the bacon sandwich, is the fact that I wanted, especially those first few weeks, to give it absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. Even though Lee said, you're entitled to the odd sort of cheat day where you are going, if you go out for a meal, you are going to have something,
Yeah.
and kind of not to feel bad about it, not to feel guilty about
Yeah.
it. Like,
No reason to beat yourself up.
exactly. And doing that is been really helpful. So if we have gone out, I've gone out and I've enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
I've had something to eat. I've had a pint, and we've had a nice evening.
Yeah.
But the following day, then I've got my exercises in, and then I was doing the squat and the push-up challenges. I was doing those at lunch.
Gotcha.
Just to break the monotony of sitting down at a desk all the time.
And fit it in when you could fit it in.
Absolutely.
I think another thing, or I don't think, I mean, I believe we've seen this for years at the gym and training people throughout the world that I think you took a stand for yourself too, that the 3 days in with your mother-in-law saying, hey, would you like a sandwich? That you weren't like, hey, it's no big deal. It's just a sandwich, or I'm going to please your mother-in-law or whatever. You actually took a stand and said no. And you weren't rude, but you didn't let that happen. And I think that helped you get into a lot of positive momentum. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you did, you against yourself. No, I'm going to take a stand. I committed to myself. I'm going to make sure this happens.
Absolutely. It was, like I said, something had to give. And, the only person that can help you, you can really use to help yourself is yourself. And, until I changed my mindset, that wasn't going to work. But the fact that it was made so easy and it was in a supported environment, even being 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
It was, checking in on me and seeing how I was doing, if I was struggling with a particular exercise or particular, dietary change, then, the help was there and the encouragement was there as well.
Yeah.
And like I said, not once did I feel guilty, not once did I feel like I was missing out. I didn't feel like I was being pushed, and I think pushed into something that was uncomfortable for me, whether that be diet or the exercises I was doing. And like I said, what was an aim for 14-pound weight loss has turned into a 22-pound weight loss,
And that was what, over 6 weeks?
over 6 weeks.
Okay, cool. So question for you as well. So we do have a script what we're doing, but also like you are a doctor.
I am indeed. Yeah.
You're a GP.
I am a GP.
And you put a lot of hard work into that, right?
I certainly do. Yeah.
And you're very proud of that.
I am proud of that. Yeah.
So if I have a problem with me, like if, actually 3 years ago now, I tore my bicep.
Yeah.
Lee called you up and said, hey, Adam did this. You knew exactly what it was, distal bicep tear.
Absolutely.
Right? So that, like, you're the professional, right? Had you ever had a coach before with your health and fitness?
No.
Okay. Why do you think there's that, like, because people go to the doctors all the time, like, hey, I've got a sore throat, my eyes, I got pink, whatever it may be, right? why do you think, in your expert opinion, why is there a challenge with people wanting to get coaching from the expert with that to help them? Do you have an idea or thought on that?
I think a little bit is society in general.
Okay.
I think we live in an environment where most people are busy, most people reach for convenience. A lot of people are in more sedentary jobs, and I think that kind of catches up with them. So I think that, the environmental and societal factors definitely play a role. I think some of the other side of things is people always assume that, or most people assume, I certainly did, that committing to a program such as this was going to consume my life and I wasn't going to have time to do anything else.
Right, like eating cardboard, working out 7 days a week for 3 hours.
Exactly. The other thing is, I think it puts a lot of people off having to go to the gym.
Which you didn't step foot in the
Nope,
gym
didn't
until
step
you got here
until I got
3
here.
weeks ago.
Yeah. And I think, yes, particularly when you do have people who are a bit more out of shape. Certainly me, I didn't have a huge amount of confidence in the way I was looking.
Well, let's pause there too, because when we first met, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
You were 90 pounds heavier.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
90 pounds heavier.
Yeah, that's
Holy
university for you.
mackerel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a good first couple of years in uni. That's all I'll say.
Okay. Yeah. So now you haven't just lost 22 pounds over the time and stuff.
Yeah.
You're down 90.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, back to it.
But I think people can feel really self-conscious creeping into your gym. The gyms back home aren't really the environment, supportive, varied environment that you've got here.
Yeah.
They are big, more conglomerate type gyms full of various people in there, and it can be quite an intimidating place to go, and an expensive place to go. And you've got those two big barriers there. You've got your time, and you've got the environment that you put yourself in, and obviously if you miss out on a session at the gym, when you've contractually paid to have that session with a trainer or with that's a bit of a barrier there. Then you creep into a little bit of guilt.
Yeah.
And I think that plays a role as well. Whereas in a more relaxed environment, however many meters in a different country, I was able to just tailor it to me and what worked for me. And I think being able to do that and be encouraged to do that, I think was a big role.
Okay.
I mean, do I think I would have gone into a major gym? I mean, I've been to gyms before, and a lot of the times that you end up going there, you see just all these machines, you see all these dumbbells, you see all these treadmills and various things. You don't really know what to do first.
So a little bit of overwhelm there.
Absolutely. And you end up going in and doing a bit of treadmill work and which is good, but if you're not doing the right things to achieve what you're trying to achieve, then you're going to be missing, and that's the bit of sort of extra input that you need.
Very cool. So does that sound like you out there a little confused, intimidated, things like that, right? So go out there, get yourself a coach today. So Chris, through your experience, stuff like that, and I got to say I'm proud of you too, because I didn't think you were going to.
No, I didn't think you were.
I mean, I thought you do something, but you actually have stuck with it.
Yeah.
Because Antonia, your wife, has never been into working out as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing. It's just that, hey, maybe at home, maybe it's not that you don't have the support, but maybe you don't feel you have the support or somebody who's on the same boat with you, right? And we were all thinking like, man, maybe this helped her too, right?
Hopefully,
yeah. So anyway, but it's helped your kids, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So it just takes time. You got to show up. What has been like one of the best lessons for you that you could leave with everybody, and one of the things that you did that started being consistent? So best thing you learned through this process, and something you could give to somebody, like if you just start doing this, you can do it like I did.
Yeah, I think the most important thing I'd learned really is that there is time. You can absolutely make time. I think that was the biggest thing, because how many people, myself fall foul of this many a time. You look on your phone, you check an email, 25 minutes later, you're scrolling Facebook.
Yeah.
Or you're looking through some stuff, because that's the way that it's set up. And I thought, actually, I absolutely have better things to do with that time. And
you're worth it.
And that was a massive change for me. And it was 2 weeks in, and my phone basically turned around I was like, why aren't you using me as much? Because it says you are down on your phone use by 4 hours. I'm thinking, was I really on for an extra 4 hours the week before? And that was things that's just got to change, and that has consistently changed. And I think, my message, I suppose, to leave you with really is that you absolutely have all of the resources available to you. You just need that little bit of guidance in a supportive environment, and a consistently supportive environment, to make some massive changes that I'll keep with me for not just these last few months, but this is my lifestyle now. And
Awesome.
It's going to make a big difference. I want to set a better example for my kids and for my patients.
Yeah.
And I think, long may it continue.
Yeah. Awesome. Proud of you, brother. Yeah. Great
Thanks,
job,
man.
man. Great
Cheers,
job.
dude.
So Chris, what else? So real quick, before you guys leave Sunday,
Yep.
a couple days. So what else you doing before you leave?
Yeah, so we're going over to some friend's house tonight. So we're going to have a bit of a party and a few bourbons.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. And then we're possibly going to check out downtown Fred and go to meet up with some friends at the winery tomorrow. So that's going to be a nice catch up before we head home. Hopefully a slightly more chilled out day, a bit of a bike ride, perhaps in the nice weather on Sunday.
Perfect.
Before we head out.
Heck yeah.
So and squeeze a work in or two as well.
That's right. You're getting ready to work out,
Yep.
actually. Cool. Thanks for joining us today on the Rare Fitness Podcast. If Chris's story helped you or somebody you know, share it with them, help them out. And if you're ready to stop starting over and control your health, reach out to us. We're here to help. Give us a call, give us a ring, and we'll help you crush all of your fitness goals. Get down there, hit that like button, and we'll see you next week.